You are listening to the Super Freak Media Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, please be sure to show your support and follow us on our other social media platforms. Check out the links listed in the description of this episode to find out more. Thank you.
And the scene where they rip off someone's with their mouth, oh my god, absolutely beautiful masterpiece.
We knew where it was going, didn't we?
It should have won an Emmy just for that. So. And welcome to the They're Queer podcast, the podcast where two homos called Liam take too many trips to a house that we're sick of seeing and bring you tales of woe, horror, and gay.
You are gay!
Hi, I'm Liam. I'm Liam J, and with me, as always, is the other Liam, Liam B. Hi.
Hi, how are you? I'm not used to being referred to as the other Liam. I usually call you the other Liam. This is weird. I feel like we're in some kind of multiverse.
The other Liam.
It is what it is.
Oh, I've become some kind of other woman. Today I got propositioned. Somebody offered me £20 to fart on their face today.
But like we said, £20 is £20, so go get that coin, girl.
I'm having a Chinese takeaway tonight, so
yeah. Are those
not
new
confirming
shoes
or
that you're
denying
wearing?
where the money's coming from. Yeah, £20 just to fart on someone's face. I found that quite a bargain. But anyway,
I think that's a good deal. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, I've done worse for free.
Incredible.
Yes. Today we are discussing American Horror Stories. I'm going to emphasize this on that. We're not talking about every single episode and season of American Horror Story. It's American Horror Stories, the anthology series that was supposed to be separate stories and wasn't.
Yeah, I think it was a strange one. When I found out, obviously, about them making it, I felt like they were going to go in one direction. And I'm not too sure they did, but I'm excited to talk about it nonetheless, because I think this was your first time watching it, wasn't it, for this?
It was, yeah. I've had a love-hate relationship with American Horror Story as of late. So when this was announced, I was kind of like, I had like American Horror Story fatigue. And Ryan Murphy fatigue. And I was like, I don't know if I'm down for it. But then I saw like screenshots of certain episodes, and I got told that everyone kept telling me, you're going to love the drive-in episode. And I'm like, okay, but if you're hyping it up this much, then I don't know. But they were right. So, good for them.
They were right indeed. I think, a lot of people had been experiencing American Horror Story fatigue, and I think that in many ways this was a smart move for Ryan Murphy FX to kind of revitalize this anthology. It's kind of almost like an anthology within an anthology. Like, it was a great idea when American Horror Story didn't repeat itself every season, and then this is like every episode now. And I think it speaks of the fact that audiences, like, their attention spans don't necessarily last a whole season of a show anymore like they did when American Horror Story started. I think now people are wanting like things like to be immediate or self-contained. Like, short films are super popular online, and I very much felt like this was like a series of short films in many ways. I suppose
if you see my face reacting weirdly, it's because oh my god, everything's popping up on my laptop. What's going on? Sorry,
it's those websites you've been visiting. That's what it is.
Do you mean big titty women are available in your area? Anyway, Ryan Murphy did something to my laptop then. But I've always loved like an anthology anything. Like, I love Creep Show. I always love Goosebumps and The Twilight Zone and stuff like that. On paper, that coupled with American Horror Story was going to be something that I love. But as I said at the time, I just had complete and utter fatigue. I just needed a break.
I think in many ways, and we'll get into this, I treat this as like, I think the only thing it shares, and obviously in season 1, we've only had 1 season so far and we're expecting season 2. I think the only thing that it really shares is like the name. I don't think the quality of the episodes is anywhere near the quality of the episodes of American Horror Story. Like, I do feel like it's just, it's very much like, I don't know, it's the ugly sister of the actual show. Shade! If that makes sense. Not usually do we kind of talk about something, I suppose, that we may, I certainly feel quite opinionated on about this show, because I really do love American Horror Story. I'd probably say it's right behind like Stranger Things for me in terms of like a show I've really loved and followed. So again, I was excited for an offshoot of that. Maybe what we got wasn't necessarily what I was thinking it was going to be. So I mean, if we give an overview of the series, we've got 7 episodes in this first season. We've got Rubber Woman Part 1 and 2 as the first 2 episodes, which was what this whole thing was kind of the foundation of this show was, we're going back to Murder House. We're going to get a Rubber Woman story as opposed to the Rubber Man. Episode 3, we've got Drive-In. Episode 4 is the Naughty List, which I believe is the shortest episode of the season. Episode 5 is Baal. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's B-A-apostrophe-A-L. It could just be Ball, I suppose. Episode 6 is Feral, and the finale is episode 7, Game Over, where again we go back to Murder House. I suppose we don't need to ask each other how we got into this, because it's only really just come out. I mean, I watched this as it aired last year, but do you have a favourite episode then out of those 7?
So Drive-In happened to end up being my favourite. As people said, I'd enjoy it, and they were right. I really loved the Naughty List, but I'm a big sucker for Danny Trejo in anything. I think he's fucking phenomenal. Basically, my favourite ones were the one not in Murder House, which is a shame because Murder House is one of my favourite seasons of TV ever. I think it's absolutely near enough perfect.
Yeah.
Baal, not so much until maybe the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. I will also say I agree. Drive-In was my favourite. I absolutely loved it at the time. It's an episode directed by Eduardo Sanchez of Blair Witch fame. We've got Adrienne Barbeau making a cameo in a great role.
An absolute queen.
Naomi Grossman is back. Obviously, we're used to seeing her play Pepper, and this time she's a one-eyed victim of the film. I think it's a really cool concept about and it comments on something we regularly talk about on these podcast episodes about the influence of horror and media on impressionable minds. But it turns it up to an 11. So I think I agree with you. I really, really loved the episodes where they were completely different to American Horror Story. I think in many ways we didn't need an opening of 2 episodes set in Murder House, which was essentially the same story. It had its moments. There were things that I liked about it, but I think it tainted Murder House in many ways.
I think what's going to be good is if we run through, we don't go into ridiculous amounts of detail, but run through the episodes. So we've got episode 1 and 2, which is the Rubber Woman. And yes, we get to see that beautiful, beautiful house, but we don't see people that we expect to see in there. So this season is just full of nepotism babies. Everyone's got a famous mum or dad or relative, and it's just there's so much more talent out there. And that's not to that's not to discredit these the people in it, but there are so we get Paris Jackson appears. Who else have we got? We've got
Kaya Gerber, who is the daughter of Cindy Crawford.
Oh well, she's stunning. Very much. She looks like her mother.
And then in the last episode, we've got Noah Cyrus as well. Obviously, sister of Miley Cyrus. So another link, I suppose.
Noah Cyrus has a great song called "My Way." Why don't we do it my way?
It is with One Bit. One Bit of Noah Cyrus.
One Bit. Oh,
One Bit.
For a minute, I thought you said Tony Bennett. I was like, I don't remember.
Why don't we do it my way?
So yeah,
sing with me.
This is This is the season of the nepotism baby, and it's just the thing is about the Rubber Woman episode 1 and 2 is it, to me, it treads too much of the same footing as Murder House did. It's basically near enough the same plot.
It is, absolutely.
New family move into a house. Daughter falls in love with a psycho.
She gets haunted by a gimp suit.
Yeah,
it's a whole thing.
To me, it doesn't. It doesn't take enough risks, these episodes. But then we'll get into it, because then it takes too many risks and it ends up being the most self-gratuitous. Anyway, but yeah, the first 2 episodes, that, as I said, I should be happy that we're back in Murder House, because I love Murder House. It wasn't nice to see the physical space again. To have 2 episodes set in there, and, you know, if we're at Murder House, we expect to see Constance, we expect to see Viv, we expect to see Violet and Tate and stuff.
Violet and Tate, yeah.
Yeah, we get references to them, but we don't get to see them.
Yeah, I think that was the annoying thing. It's like when you've got a space which is occupied by such iconic characters, and there's like literally a whole cast of iconic characters, but then the ones that we see are kind of like the ones that were like referenced in historic stories, or ones that never really featured heavily in the original show. Yeah, it just didn't make all that much sense. It
made me feel quite uncomfortable, purely because how old is she? Like 15? And they're like, hi, we know that you're into really extreme porn. And it's like, right. It tackles some weird issues. Which, and like, obviously, I'm not saying that young people, I mean, I work with young people. Like, I'm not saying that young people can't watch porn, but that it's just, it was a weird angle to take. Yeah.
I mean, I will say, Sierra McCormick plays the title character in these first 2 episodes.
She's incredible.
I think she's absolutely great. And I think what the problem is she was so great that then when she is up against these nepotism babies, it's so apparent that like she is an actress, and these other people aren't necessarily.
You have to forgive me for name, but like Cindy Crawford's daughter, maybe she should follow her mum's footsteps and just do modelling, because Cindy Crawford is, like, if we're talking 90s supermodels, Cindy and Naomi are my favourite, and then Heidi. Like, I love Cindy Crawford. But yeah, to me, she didn't hold any sort of... She was very one note as an actress. I mean, I don't know if that came from the material, though, because we've got to remember that the material they were working from wasn't great either.
Look at the material! Oh, God.
Yeah, I think the problem with this is it was American Horror Story by association. You had such an iconic location which literally birthed the franchise and set up a lot of the mythology that like is carried and echoed through a lot of the seasons, like about ghosts being in that trapped in a certain place, being able to go elsewhere at Halloween. All of these like rules that Murder House really established really, really well. But then we were now given a really shit script. People who, in my eyes, really couldn't really act, so they couldn't elevate the material. No. But then also, there was nothing that progressed the story. There was no reason why this story needed to be told.
I've got to say as well, the camera work made me feel sick. Now, I'm not like a camera-y person. I don't know all those things, but it's not just the first 2 episodes. It like carries on. This season, some of the camera work is really shoddy. There's so many cuts and jump cuts that I started to feel sick watching it. And I'm somebody who can, like, the Blair Witch Project doesn't make me feel sick. I don't get motion sickness. Like, but there were so many unnecessary cuts, and it just felt like it was shoddily edited together as well, which is,
I mean, that was the whole thing. And I think this is why overall, if I'm being honest, I felt like it tarnished the franchise as opposed to elevating it or adding anything to it, because it felt so kind of like shoddy and so like cheap. Like, you could tell the production value wasn't there. You could tell that unfortunately the talent wasn't necessarily always there.
I had to Google to make sure that these all weren't like competition first time filmmaker winners, you know what I mean? And that's not to discredit people who are first-time filmmakers at all, but you know what I mean? It didn't feel like it, for the budget it had, it didn't feel like it had that much.
Yeah.
For the budget it had, it must have just spent it all on like Michael Jackson's daughter and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will say that I'll give Paris a due. She was all right, but
yeah,
she did feel like an Emma Roberts character. She just, to me, felt like Emma Roberts should be playing this.
I will give it its dues. I think the Rubber Woman storyline, obviously, it does tackle some interesting things. I think tackling the idea of a teenager being obsessed with really brutal and savage like porn is an interesting approach. I do think though it did tackle, and I mean particularly throughout all of these episodes, it's obviously very much geared towards a younger audience, like the perils of social media or these sorts of things. These weren't things that we had with Violet and Tate in the original Murder House, because social media wasn't what it is today. So there is, I mean, pretty much the naughty list is a TikTok episode. Like, it's the whole idea, I think, is for them to appeal to a younger audience and pull them in, and then maybe through this the younger audience might then discover the older seasons and the older episodes as opposed to getting into the newer stuff. So it does bridge the gap in that regard. It might just be that I'm turning into an old man now and I'm a bit like, but I just didn't really see the appeal or the value of these stories.
No, I feel
it was
like
just familiar ground, but done in
there
a
was
really
some like
bad way.
really dumb writing as well. Like, I feel like, oh my god, the bits that like made me being like, I'm going to switch this off in a minute is so you've got the gay parents, but of course the gay parents are promiscuous and can't, you know, the gay person they have to do drugs. Not like they were harmful. They were just stereotypes, and I'm not saying that gay people can't be portrayed as this, but when it becomes in this franchise, we happen to be portrayed one way. I think the only queer character in American Horror Story history who I've ever felt was given like true like gravitas and a decent story was Elizabeth Taylor in Hotel. Like, otherwise, I feel like we've just been copy and paste, sex crazed, drug addicted, promiscuous, just
I mean, that's not to say
lookalikes.
that angles of that don't exist in the queer community. The problem is, whereas I think, I don't know, they kind of got away with it maybe a little bit more in American Horror Story, was the fact that these characters were flawed and that it like felt right for them to kind of have to confront that in many ways, whereas in this it was like, because we only had a short amount of time, we were heavily relying on stereotypes for each of the queer characters. I mean, one thing which is important, obviously we're a queer podcast, at the centre of these first two stories very much is a queer love story between the Rubber Woman and Kaya Gerber's character, and like this weird sadomasochistic psychotic relationship that they have going on. So I mean, it's not like the representation isn't there. I think it's pretty much there in near enough every episode. There is like a reference to a queer character or a queer issue. I just don't think it's done very well. Like, I think it's just it's very ham-fisted.
It feels lazy. But yeah, in this I suppose we do get a returning character in the form of Crying Wank Ben.
Yeah, Dylan McDermott does make a cameo in the last episode, Game Over. So I suppose the difference between the first two episodes and the finale is the settings are both Murder House, but it kind of becomes meta within meta in that last episode. Like, American Horror Story exists as a TV series, but then also the ghosts of American Horror Stories are in real life. Like, it's very confusing what it's wanting to do.
Yeah, we'll get to that one because I have a lot, like quite a bit to say about that episode. So anyway, moving swiftly on from Rubber Woman 1 and 2. The third episode is the drive-in episode. Is it just called Drive-In?
It is just called Drive-In, yeah.
As I said, this is my favourite out of all of them. The idea that there's people are going to see a cult film that was only showed once, and when it was shown, the whole cinema like erupted into violence, and all the cinema goers killed each other or mutilated each other, and then it's many years later, and there's a drive-in showing of it, and like the world's going crazy and really want to see it. Oh, I should have said at the beginning, spoiler alert for all of these. But yeah, turns out the same shit happens again in spectacular fashion. As I said, Adrienne Barbeau turns up looking like
she's like, she doesn't look like she's aged a day since she was in her prime in like The Fog and Creepshow, and
there's no surprise to say that she's like such a standout character in this episode. I love her so much. Everything she's appeared in, I've loved it. Even what's that horrible, dreadful RuPaul show that happened? AJ and the Queen.
Oh, AJ and the Queen. Yeah.
When she popped up in that,
she's just great. And I mean, yeah,
that
again,
hair as well.
It just draws attention though to the fact, doesn't it, that like when you do get someone of that caliber involved, like everyone else needs to be up to scratch with that. I mean, I will say, I didn't think the acting was too terrible in this in this episode, and I mean that's obviously a credit to the actors, but also Eduardo Sanchez as well. Like, I think a thing with these, a lot of these episodes I noticed were written by a guy called Manny Koto, and he also directed a few of them as well. But I don't know. I looked at his filmography like while I was doing research for this, and his experience in the director's chair seems to mainly be kind of this series. And unfortunately, I don't know, like, I think it's great. We do need to be taking risks on new directors. Like, please God, fingers crossed someone book me one day. But I don't know. It was, I think the episodes where we had other people involved, there was just a finesse to this episode, which I really liked.
Even though I really liked that it was like short form content, I feel like a lot was packed in there, but I do feel like that could have easily have been turned into a feature film, and I really would have enjoyed it. There's so much more there's so much more I still want to know about it. And with that question, it sets up a lot. It also answers a lot, but also doesn't give too much away, and it's brilliant. I've really enjoyed thinking about it now. I enjoy it even more. I think the pacing of it was really good as well, knowing that they had a short amount of time to tell this story. There's not too much exposition as well, which some of the other episodes suffer greatly from.
Absolutely, I agree.
There isn't too much given away, and when it is, it's like fed to us in a really natural way. It feels like there are things. The writing in this episode as well is very strong. There's some great moments of dialogue. The queer person in this, again, is sex obsessed, but to me, it feels a little bit more natural in this. And the scene where they rip off someone's with the mouth, absolutely. Oh my God, absolutely beautiful masterpiece.
We knew where it was going, didn't we?
It should have won an Emmy just for that episode. But no, I really enjoyed it. The violence in this was, oh my God, I love
it. It was done really, really well. Like, I mean, yeah, it had everything. I mean, it did kind of practically devolve into a bit of a zombie flick at some points, because essentially that is what happens to people when they see this film. But I don't know, the concept is what is killer. Like, the idea of there being like this cursed film, like this cursed media that everyone is naturally going to want to consume. And when they do, it just turns them into absolute maniacs. Like you said, this is a story that really had legs. And I think the other episodes, not all of them, but some of them particularly, really didn't have that like kind of winning idea. And I'm really hopeful that we have more ideas like this going into season 2.
Well, my question to you, if that happened in real life, not the drive-in bit, but like say in the 80s a film came out and the same thing happened, but next week I was to tell you that, I don't know, Showcase are going to show it, would you go and watch it?
I 100% would. Like, I know I'm like that dumb. But I mean, this as well, and I don't know if obviously it was like a nod to it. There was a great anthology series, I think back in the 90s, called Masters of Horror, and John Carpenter did an episode of this episode of it called Cigarette Burns, and it was a similar idea where there was a film, I think, of a fallen angel, which was like a cursed like film, and if you saw that, it kind of took you in a similar place. This, I think, took that idea but then updated it to like for kids and our generation.
It did feel really fresh though. Like it did.
Yes.
Like you can see where influences were, but it didn't feel like it was, we're just going to rip it off entirely. It felt, as I said, after the first 2 episodes, this one really felt like
so refreshing.
Really breath of fresh air. And I was sitting there and I was like, okay. So after this one, I was like, right, I'm ready for whatever comes next because it's made up for
this
it.
definitely got me back into it, absolutely, after those first 2 episodes.
I do. Oh my God. So I really do like everyone dismissing that woman who's like, don't go in there, don't watch it. And I lost my eye because of this, and I'm like, you crazy bitch.
100% we'd be exactly the same. Like, we'd be like, this is great marketing. And she's like, legit, like, no, you are going to die.
But also, I'd be one of those people who survive because I would also be sucking dick and too busy to be watching the film. So,
I didn't want to say, but yeah.
So again, I don't think we've covered a lot of ground with that one. So I'm happy to move on to episode 4.
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say, obviously you've spoken about this and how you felt. I think you liked this episode. I was like very much back in the series after Drive-In, and then episode 4 we get the Naughty List, which is the TikTok themed Killer Santa episode. I've got to say, hands down, this was the worst episode for me. I absolutely hated it.
I only enjoyed the last 10 minutes of this episode again.
Yeah,
too much time was
But to consider that the episode was 30 something minutes long, to only enjoy 10 minutes of it, I mean,
too much time was spent with those god awful. I know we're not supposed to like these characters. I know that we aren't, but they didn't have to be that none of them felt real. None of them felt. Nobody is that dumb and clueless. It wasn't funny as well. I didn't find it funny. It was trying its hardest to be funny. I tell you what, I did like to see Dylan Burnside. What a man.
I mean, I'm very much a fan of the cast. I thought the cast were great, and I was happy to see them. And I mean, I suppose they did do well to embody these really, because essentially I'd say this episode is like a parody of the Jake Paul, Logan Pauls of the world. And obviously there was the controversy with Logan Paul when he went to the suicide forest in Japan and literally videoed a corpse. It's not they make mention to that and have the characters act in a really similar dumb way, and I get what it was going for. I just think that there was no, it just wasn't rewarding enough.
It wasn't.
This was the episode I wanted the protagonist to suffer, and it was a bit too.
Also, so in that amount of time, nobody learnt their lesson.
No,
I don't think nobody was punished enough for it. There was nothing redeemable about this, and I'm not saying that every story has to be redeemable, but I want some sort of payoff for having to endure listening and watching those dickhead characters for the majority of that episode. It got to a point as well where I feel like it was really beating the audience over the head of, this is how far someone will go for fame. We get what you're trying to say. You don't have to go so over the top and extreme.
I think this is it. So I mean, just to give a rough idea of the story, it essentially opens up this house of content creators, and they essentially video someone jumping off a bridge and committing suicide, and then they're kind of oh well, this will be great for views, and they launch it at one of their video parties, and then everyone is holy shit, what were you thinking, this is disgusting, you shouldn't be mocking the last few minutes of someone who's clearly going through something. And I think, if the episode took that, and then the characters were trying to maybe make up for what they'd done from that point, and then they were confronted by this killer Santa who is ultimately obviously very much carrying out the will of
why the f*** was it a killer Santa? Because
it was just very, very odd. I mean, the only way that he sort of gets involved is because then they decide to pull another stunt, and they go to the mall. And,
before that, you're forgetting. Before that, they say if we go gay, and we bromosexual or whatever it's called, and then we spend ages just watching them pretend to be gay, and there was no horror at all, which it didn't feel like a horror story. I mean, apart from that, I feel like that was tacked on. The way I would have gone about it, me personally, I would have had them the same beginning. They film this suicide, and then afterwards they're really apologetic, and no matter what they try and do, they're not being redeemed, and it's that person's haunting them and causing all this misery to them. To then just randomly throw in a mall Santa who's also
yeah.
a killer. Like it felt so tacked on, and it felt like there was two different ideas.
It was a complete waste of Danny Trejo as well, because spoiler alert, Danny Trejo is paying the killer Santa.
Incredible actor, like one of the most phenomenal actors we got out there. He's you watch something with Danny Trejo in, you're not expecting like Oscar worthy performance, but what you're expecting is an actor who's like committed to a role, will give you action, but will also like put some like weight behind it. Do
you know what stands out to me? Like, I'm not a huge fan of the Rob Zombie Halloween films, but you know his
performance in
films, like it's heartbreaking.
He's barely any screen time, and he's like,
and
he's the only person
bit out that I like.
The only person who connects like humanly with Michael, like when he's in. I love that, and I just love him in everything he's been in. I just think he's brilliant, and you were right. He was such a waste.
I mean, do you know what this episode reminded me of more recently? What I've watched, and I think we've discussed this like privately, but never on the podcast. Is the Dashcam film, which I absolutely hated, and I mean, it was the case of it, like literally bashing you over the head with this protagonist that we're following is so unlikable and irredeemable, but then there was no reward to that. Like with this as well, it's like the kills that happen are so fast and immediate and so CGI heavy as well. Like when we've come from driving with such practical effects and like great deaths and the I don't know, such like visceral imagery, for this to be like some weird CGI blood splatter when someone gets like their throat ripped out or like shot in with an arrow.
That's the difference between this series and other anthology shows. All other anthology shows I've watched feel like they are not part of the same universe, but there's like a through line with them all.
For sure.
Like quality or writing.
Someone's overseen it and gone, right, this needs to be upped, or this needs to be...
there was no consistency throughout all of them. So, but yeah, as I said, the characters are just, until the very end, completely annoying, irredeemable, not like, and you can have unlikable characters in your film, but the payoff has to be, right, they've been
put them through the ringer,
that like really make them suffer. Not
for sure,
especially like, and also I feel like it should be an importance to the order that they die. To me, the order was out of whack. The main blonde one, Mr. Muscle, should have been like the last death, and he should have really suffered.
Or like watched everyone else suffer or something like that. Like there needed to be kind of some there was no story to it really. I think they had a pitch meeting and were like, let's make something around TikTok. What's a cool trend? Oh well, we've had killer clowns, let's make it festive and make it killer Santas now. And it was just really bad.
I didn't like but the whole gay stuff in that as well. And I know
I know queer baiting is an issue on TikTok, and like particularly through lockdown. Like,
but how many things do you need to hit? How many things do you need to hit us over the head with? Though there was too much. That was impossible. And then it just got to the point where I was like, "There's no like, you've wasted 10 minutes of this short episode just showing me people pretending to be gay with one another. It's boring. Like, piss off." Anyway,
enough. Enough. So episode 5, we move on to Baal, which is another episode which stars an American Horror Story alumni.
The only nepotism baby I will allow.
Absolutely. We have Billie Lourd in this episode, and I mean, she is someone who I think can act. I would dare say I think they get her to ham it up in this episode quite a bit, but I think this again was probably like one of my stronger episodes. I liked it. I thought it was like a story. It knew it was a self-contained story. It was going to be its own thing. It had like some nice homages thrown throughout there, like Rosemary's Baby, things like that, which I enjoyed. This actually, interestingly enough, is the top-rated episode of the series according to IMDb. Okay. So interesting. I don't agree with it, but I think I see why.
As I said, I don't completely dislike this episode. I have a lot of issues with it, and I enjoyed the last bit of it. I really love Billie Lourd's performance in this is phenomenal. I love it. Shout out to whoever did wardrobe in this episode as well, because shit on
the whole aesthetic of this episode is great.
The final outfit she wears in this, I nearly said outshit then.
The final outfit she has in this episode, like
the final outfit she wears with that big hat when she's in the prison, amazing. But anyway, so basically, we meet this couple, very wealthy couple, can't have a baby, no matter how much they try. They go to a fertility clinic, and this woman's like, "Oh, I feel really bad for you. He's like a little magic-y totemy idol thing. Stick it under your bed, have sex, you'll get pregnant." That happens. Our main character can't connect with the baby because it's a baby.
If you had a child.
Has basically postnatal depression. I don't mean to say basically like it's this thing that, but I'm trying to whiz through the synopsis here. Can't connect to it, but then life finds a way through meditation or holistic baby water bath stuff. Anyway, that happens. She keeps thinking she sees a demon.
Right.
Plot twist: a fella is part of a production company and has set it all up. And she's gone into the nut house and he wants to take her millions. But another plot twist. She actually summoned the real demon to them up and then is like, "Do you want to stick your willy in me and give me another baby?" And he's like, "Yeah, go on." Wow, Mia.
I might as well.
But with this episode, I have a lot of issues with this episode because when I talk about hitting you over the head with exposition, this is the fucking episode. They basically sit there at one point and they're like, "Well, I love lighting. I love directing. Oh yes, me, I'm an actor." And then the scene where we've got the twist and they're all discussing it, like, "Well, it was thanks to my strobe lighting that we did it." Oh, but what about my fog machine? It's so lazy. So you didn't need to tell us.
No.
Show me, don't tell me. And
absolutely.
I already, once the twist happened, I already knew that his mates were in on it. Yeah. And I didn't need to know what each one did individually because they've told me in the previous scene what they do. So I already know it was lazy as I hate it when stories hit me and slap me over the face with exposition.
This episode is an example of where the concept is great. Because, I mean, I love anything like demonic, supernatural, all that sort of stuff. I think naturally, childbirth, obviously, I don't have a uterus, so I can't comment, but childbirth must be such a scary thing to experience as an individual and such an unknown thing as well. And yeah, the idea of you not naturally clicking with your baby, even though you've gone through years of like IVF treatment, like that's a horror story in itself. And like that then takes the sidelines to like this very convoluted plot of like, oh, okay, this is essentially like a prank. This whole thing is a prank. I mean, I didn't hate it. I just think, like you said, it could have been shown, not told to you. It's hammered over your head. I think as well, a lot of the scares were like kind of I think it was a bit lazy. This is an episode that definitely relies a lot on loud noises.
Loud noises!
When not very much happens. Like, Billy Lord will literally just look to her left and it'll be like, and you're like, oh, okay, she's glanced dramatically. I always like a bit of a revenge story, and I'm glad that I think I loved the twist that then she did actually summon a demon and it went apeshit and completely ripped everyone apart, leaving just her incredibly horrible boyfriend to just, I don't know, rot in prison. I think that is great. Yeah. But yeah, it was a longer episode. I think it definitely felt longer. I mean, I rewatched this one today. It does well. It does deliver on its promise of like being a contained horror story. I didn't hate it. I even think, if it had been like a period setting or something like that, might have just elevated it a little bit more to make me like it a bit better. It did try to cram too much. I would have like a feature-length film of that would be brilliant. And if you slowly drip fed us that not everything's as it seems, because I thought when I was first watching, I was like, that demon looks like shit. Like, what the have they done? And then wouldn't you know it's intentionally supposed to look like shit? It's a bit more fun. But like at first I was like, oh god. I was like, even Buffy, like in '97, managed to make demons look better than that. Then that was the funny part. I will say then when we do get the demon at the end, the makeup is impeccable. Like I love the
gorgeous,
design.
Absolutely stunning.
And I'm sure I understand as well. He's a very muscly dude. Why she maybe wants to have a baby with said demon.
Oh, so. I'd have shagged it. Absolutely, yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. This is the podcast where Liam reveals he would have sex with a demon.
I would. Oh my god, there's plenty of demons I'd have sex with.
Okay.
My inner demons. Shout out to Billy Lord's final costume when she goes to visit her sexy fucking boyfriend in prison. He's in 911 Lone Star and he plays a gay firefighter. Very sexy in that.
Oh, okay.
And he's also bisexual in real life.
Hey.
Yeah. Very.
How you doing?
Hey. Hey. How y'all doing?
Yeah. I'd ride that demon like the wind, and I'd wear Billy Lord's white power suit with the hat on. Yeah.
Okay.
Moving swiftly on.
So episode 6, we're on the penultimate episode now. We've got Feral, which is, I'd say, the wrong turn hillbilly cannibalistic episode. So it's tackling again another subgenre of, I'd say, particularly American horror. I do feel like the hillbilly genre is very much an American thing. Yeah, so I wasn't mad at it.
No, but that's they were clever with that, because there's a big trend on TikTok over the last year where people are talking about all the conspiracy theories about the Appalachian Mountains. Yes, so it's very clever. I enjoyed that.
Very on trend. Yeah.
I really did like this episode. There was, again, some choices.
Well, this was an episode that was written and directed by Manny Coto again. So I will say I do think this was the strongest one of the bunch from him.
I genuinely found this one quite unsettling and creepy as well. So basically, a couple go to the woods, lose their child. We get a flash forward. And,
we come back a decade later, and they're still desperately searching for said child, and they follow a guy into the woods with the promise that he's seen this child maybe on a hunting camera.
And it turns out that's bullshit. They meet Cody Fernall on the way, who's so fucking fine.
He is a very beautiful man, absolutely he is. Yeah, again, pulling in another American Horror Story alum to fill out the cast. And I think you can tell he's having fun with this role in this one.
Just have fun with me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
I wouldn't have thought that Cody Fernall was your
clean
type.
Off of his. He's just very pretty.
He is very pretty. He's very beautiful.
He's
beautiful human.
Do you know what he really reminds me of? There's a painting of Lucifer.
Yes.
Where it's looking like that.
He was perfect.
That's why he was perfect
in
as Michael,
wasn't he?
But he's so beautiful, just stunning. And I know it's big. I know. So I don't know if I can't remember if I spoke about this before, but I have a sixth sense where I can look at someone who has a penis and I know what it looks like, and I've never been wrong, and I know.
Okay, what do you think mine looks like?
I'll answer that off air, because then you'll have to show me. So let me know but I know that he's got low hanging balls. I just know it.
I can't believe I didn't think that we'd be talking about Cody Fern, but little Cody Fern.
So that anyway, to bring you back in, that all happens. Turns out there are people in the forest.
Talking about gobbling meat, there are also people in the forest that like to gobble meat. There are cannibals in these woods.
That's all scary, and it turns out that kid was snatched by them. And the kid's like, "You're not my mummy and daddy." Well, you are, but I don't care, because this is my new family now. Eat them.
I was going to say, I think the strong bits about this episode are the fact that, like you said, it taps into this trend that we're getting with the Appalachian mountains and area, and the fact that the people going missing in the wilderness in America is a very big thing that does happen, and I don't think there's anywhere near enough people talking about it. It does kind of reveal that the national park system was set up not to provide and preserve nature to the masses, but rather to actually protect people from things that want to eat them, because there's these pockets of these, I don't know, feral creatures existing all over America, which is an absolutely terrifying concept.
It absolutely
so
is.
I love that. And I mean, we do get a lot of gore this episode. We get, obviously, the things you'd expect. They are just cannibalistic, mutated, inbred creeps. The final reveal is that they see their kid and he calls them dinner. So
I have a question.
Another reason to not have children.
That child, why is it look so f***ed up, and why is its teeth so ugly? Because I'm not being funny.
I think it's just the lack of dental care.
Yeah, but like your teeth, his teeth were like.
Do you think? Yeah, I mean,
like an anglerfish. Like,
but is it because he's had to like eat bones and like literally the meat off of people?
Oh, I don't know.
I feel like that's like the angle.
Anyway,
I know what you mean. They made
highlights of this episode.
Cody
Fern. Like, but I like that they were talking like they brought in some like Australian mythos there. When they were talking
he is
about
Australian, isn't he? So I think didn't he get to do it in his native accent?
Oh, I didn't know he was Australian.
I'm sure he is.
Hey, Cody.
Can you do an Australian accent?
No.
Cleo. No.
Cleo.
Cleo. He is an Australian actor. Oh, and director. So
he can direct his into my. In hindsight, like, I enjoyed this one a lot. Again, I feel like a little bit of time was wasted. I didn't need to see the beginning. I didn't need to see that kid go missing.
I liked that. I didn't mind that. The time jump, I guess, was interesting. But I suppose we needed that because of the reveal at the end. And then the fact that he was now their king of sorts, like this weird child king. There was like a weird bone throne.
Why?
Bone Throne, another name for you on Grindr.
Thank you.
I don't know. I was back in again. I thought these two episodes were quite strong. The last two we've discussed, I didn't mind them. Have you seen the reboot as well, by the way, of Wrong Turn? Have you watched that yet?
I have, yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
Okay.
That was very like progressive, wasn't it? In like the way it was.
Yeah, it was okay, but I think like it was only Wrong Turn in name and not in
because it should have been its own thing.
I don't mind the Wrong Turn franchise at all. I like the first one because I love Eliza Dushku. The second one is actually quite great.
The opening terrified me as a child.
I think it's like really clever, but anyway, with this episode, there were moments. Aaron Tveit is in it, and I'm probably not saying that.
Is he the father?
He plays the dad, and he's aged beautifully. He's very, very attractive. I'd suck 2 out of 3 men in this episode. So actually,
that's a strong rating.
That guy takes them on a hike. I don't. If we're in the woods and there's no one else around, go on.
Something about him. Bit of a bear in the woods. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so we finish Feral and we enter into the finale episode, which was really hyped up. Another return to a murder house. This one's called Game Over, and
what a mess.
They literally kind of like say in the episode, for this to be the episode which probably features the most cameos of like American Horror Story characters, it's such a shame. It's so all over the place. Like, the idea is that there's a woman who's a mother who's making a game of Murder House. She's making a computer game in order to impress her son, and it gets meta in the fact that the son's like, oh, you don't understand what Murder House is about. You don't understand, like, these characters need to confront their trauma and their demons in order to become free spirits in this house. And it's just an absolute mess. And then for them to then throw in again the return of Rubber Woman and her girlfriend and that all being in the plot, what were they thinking? It's
a mess of an episode. I get what they were trying to do. I get they were trying to be fun and cheeky and meta, but there's an art to being meta. I'm thinking of things like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Scream, obviously, but there are like Black Mirror, just some meta commentary in it. That's great. This one was a convoluted mess.
By the end of the episode, wasn't it?
It was dreadful. By the end of that episode, I didn't know what was happening. I still didn't know what was happening, and I was bored when we got to see like different characters pop up in that like sequence. I was like, oh, what's going on? Like, this is why the fuck's Twisty here? You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is it's
bloody
interesting.
face. And then we've got Jamie Brewer coming back as the girl that's going to tell you
you're going to die in there.
But then it just, it's just.
I want to be a pretty girl.
I mean, to take. I mean, again, it's just such a tarnish on like that season, but and all of the seasons really. I mean, I know what you're saying. Like, I do get what they were trying to go for. It's like fan service to the next level.
It just wasn't executed well whatsoever. I feel like, again, there are some good performances that the mum puts on a really good performance, I feel, and it was quite moving. But
I didn't think Dylan McDermott was like that great though. Like, you could tell this felt like it was a paycheck. It
was like really hammed up and really over the top, and whether that's he was told to do it that way so the audience know that it's actually a video game in the end, and then because we get we get a reveal and then we get a reveal and then we get another reveal and a wink that things may actually
so I mean, ultimately it's like a story within a story within a story. I mean, one thing I will say, which was quite sweet, we do have Noah Cyrus in this opening, and I think she's a great singer.
Great gowns, beautiful gowns.
The gowns were beautiful. I will say I thought it was quite sweet. She put on social media like how nice it was for her to have been a part of the show she was such a fan of, and like to get in Murder House, and like, I don't know, that must have been magic as like a fan of the show to be a part of it. I do think then the decisions that were then made, like the story was just kind of nothing. I don't know, we just didn't need a story like trying to find out like what we already knew about Murder House. Like we didn't need to be explained. Like, we should interpret like that story as we like.
And then to make it a sequel then a pseudo sequel to the first 2 episodes of this season was just,
as well as being a sequel to the because I didn't know. Like, it was never made clear in the. I suppose it is in the first 2 episodes. The reference to the Rubber Man, we're kind of like, oh, okay, we get the Red Bull and the Infantata and all of that, this iconography we're used to seeing. But because so many other characters just don't appear, you assume that in some ways this is like its own like alternate version of Murder House, the same.
I feel like this is a universe where American Horror Stories is also a TV show, because that's why she included the Rubber Woman characters, and it wasn't. If it was done right, I think this would have been a really fun episode. If it wasn't, but it was.
But this would be such a shit computer game as well. Like, who wants to go into a house and have conversations with characters, but then do literally nothing? Like, there's no puzzle solving. There's none of like that stuff that like you'd expect to see in a game. So then when there's the rug pull, this was a game all along. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Who's playing it?
It wasn't. It would have been interested in if it was like a text game, like a text-based game. If they did it like that, like then it would have made more sense, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That would have been a really cool angle. But yeah, you kind of get this idea then that the house has then been burnt down. There's a finite end to it. All the spirits are appeased. But then the one thing I did like was the real estate agent played by Tom Lenk, who I thought it was awesome to see him. Like, he was great
from
in that
Buffy
role.
My Angel.
Anything he's in, I think I'll always be a fan of. He was probably the highlight for me. I like Sierra McCormick. Her fashion and the way that she looked at the end was phenomenal.
To die for. But yeah, because then it
falls flat.
It was really sad that the season ended like that, because I'm
so sorry. The way that you just coughed and then got annoyed that your body made you do that was the funniest thing to say. Sorry.
Yeah, it's such a shame that like the season was bookended by these by these stories, especially like this is what it ended with.
If it wanted to be its own thing, it should have just been its own thing. Like, the fact that we liked the episodes that were completely unrelated, or I mean, even if there was just like a tentative link, like, I don't know, they mentioned the Hotel Cortez or they mentioned Murder House, we'd be like, okay, it's in the same world, but we don't need to visit those characters.
Or even if like we see a character who was in it, but it's barely, like, it's a passing moment. It was so,
like Lana Winters is on the news or something
exactly
like that.
That final episode did not make me excited for season 2 whatsoever. Like, I was I was like,
I didn't think that there would be a season 2. I honestly thought it wouldn't get renewed. But I suppose Ryan Murphy being Ryan Murphy, he
gets his own way.
He obviously knows shit about people at FX.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say that I really like about this season is each episode gets its own unique opening title sequence.
You absolutely beat me
I really appreciated that, and plus they kept the American Horror Story theme, because I don't mind it when they change it to adapt certain seasons.
Yes,
but I just miss that original theme tune so much. I love it.
You said obviously that you've been revisiting Apocalypse, and I will say I absolutely loved that title sequence because of the fact that it had obviously Murder House Coven in there, but it was that original theme. I do absolutely love the title sequences, and that's one of the things, like the promos and the title sequences are some of the most exciting elements of American Horror Story for me.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I will say I don't think that it let us down with that. I think the Baal episode probably had my favourite title sequence, like the pink and purple and like the demonic drawings. I'm excited for season 2 already for that, because again I'm hoping we get like different ones each episode.
Well, I'm excited for season 2 because I'm hoping they're like, let's look at what worked and what didn't work. Nobody, if they fucking dare to go to Murder House at least once in this new season.
We revisited it enough in American Horror Story, like going back in Apocalypse. It was its own thing. Like we didn't need it again.
Apocalypse wrapped it up in this gorgeous little bow as well, I think.
Absolutely.
Constance getting some closure, everyone getting some closure in that final one, and Viv and Ben reuniting after, wrapped it in such a nice little bow.
And to then have this afterwards is just,
I was like, I'm happy to never go back again.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
But season 2, we've just had the trailer drop for it, and we've had a list of all the upcoming episodes.
Yeah, so where we had 7 episodes in season 1, we've got 9 episodes in this second season.
Interesting.
But looking at all of the titles, I mean, I'll go through these with you. I have a feeling we're going to get original stories this time round. So episode 1 is Dollhouse, and we know that Dennis O'Hare is going to be in this episode. I don't know. I think it's rumoured that he's going to be a character linked back, obviously, to American Horror Story. The only character I could think that is associated with dolls would be the butler in Coven, but I don't know really what his fate is in that. So, again, because there was a character obviously there that was obsessed with dolls. Whether or not he's playing a relative of the butler, we don't know. And obviously, he very much has his tongue in this season. We've seen him talk in the trailer. The episodes kick off then July 21st, the date actually that this episode will go live. So we've timed this perfectly, and they are going to be airing every week. So again, I kind of like that it's a serial thing. Like we do have to wait every week. We don't get that with TV anymore. Running through the titles then of the episodes, and then we'll maybe discuss the cast that have been confirmed. Episode 2 is entitled Necro. I believe in the trailer that's referring to, there's a character who seems to be like a mortician who talks about dead bodies being more interesting after they're dead. Number 3 is called Aura.
I really hope Aura has Lady Gaga's hit song Aura in there. Aura.
I would love that. Anything art pop, sign me up for.
Justice for art pop.
Number 4 is Drive. Number 5 is Bloody Mary. Now this is the one I'm really, really excited for. This looks to seem to have Dominique Jackson of Pose fame and Legendary fame, if you watch Legendary.
She is a legend herself. I love Dominique Jackson so fucking much. She's an icon. She's a legend. She is the moment.
She is the moment. It looks like from the trailer that there's going to be like kind of some Civil War time period, like where obviously race was a big part of the story, and then also she is maybe playing the titular character Bloody Mary. Obviously Ryan Murphy got everyone to vote on like possible American Horror Story themes for the future seasons. Bloody Mary was definitely a popular one, so that looks kind of impressive. Episode 6 we've got Facelift. Episode 7 is called Milkmaids. Number 8 is called Cellulite, and number 9 is called Lake. From the clips we've seen, it looks like we've got a serial killer episode with Bella Thorne involved. there's like some weird like bandage kind of thing going on. I don't know if that's going to be linked to Necro and the like maybe the dead body episode. Alicia Silverstone has just been recently confirmed as being cast. The scene we see her in is the scene we see her in looks a bit grudgy to me. We've got like dirty bathwater and like a dead hand reaching out of the tub. So I don't know.
Well, she needs to redeem herself because I've just watched her in a god awful shark film.
This is a shark film I told you about like months ago. Can you remember?
Yeah.
Where the shark flies at the end.
Awful. Dreadful.
It's the one where she's in the she's in the
she's on the hotel room.
The hotel room boat, yeah. Floating out to sea, yeah.
Dreadful.
Absolutely. The scene where she's talking about losing her baby, which should be like a really traumatic scene, is just comical.
She annoyed the shit out of me throughout the whole of it, and I thought,
and the thing is she can act.
She can act. She was in Batman and Robin, so of course we know she can act. No, but yeah, she can act. I love Alicia Silverstone, but that made me hate it anyway. I'm hoping this redeems my love for her.
I'm excited to see her play in the horror genre. Like I think I said before when I mentioned the shark film, she's in the opening of a film called The Lodge as well, which I really enjoyed. Although her part's small, she seemed to like really leave an impact, which was great. So I'm excited for this. I mean, also in this season, we've mentioned Dennis O'Hare, Dominique Jackson, Alicia Silverstone, and Bella Thorne. Cody Fern is returning again. He seems to be in like Civil War garb, so I think he might be in the Bloody Mary episode.
I hope he's on the right side of the war.
You never know. I think it looks like he's getting his fingers cut off or he's being tortured in some way. So that to me suggests that maybe he is. But we don't know.
Well, time will tell.
Judith Light is in there, who was in The Politician and, of course, Claire Mead fame in Ugly Betty, who I love.
Icon.
Gabri Sidibe is returning as well.
Amazing.
To the franchise.
Love her.
Love her. So I personally am quite optimistic about this season. What I loved about American Horror Stories, even with the first season, is it was like the show that kept me going until American Horror Story returned. This was like an appetizer or a starter for the main course, which would come like September, October time.
The main course that came after American Horror Stories was the double feature, wasn't it?
Yeah. So did you watch that? Did you? No. I'd give it a whirl. I'm
about to watch it because. I said I've just rewatched Apocalypse because I needed to be like, I need something that I'm going to enjoy. So I was like, I'm going to rewatch Apocalypse because I never got to the final episode of it. I don't know why.
The final episode is like you
amazing.
Have watched the final episode now.
Yeah, I've watched it now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She didn't need the help of a powerful voodoo queen.
Oh, Angela
that ain't you,
Bassett.
sis.
Oh. But yeah, I
screamed when that happened.
I just love, I'm Constance Langdon, and this is my fucking house.
The one-liners in that season is just impeccable. That's how you write a show.
So after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to watch 1984, whatever it is. And then I'm going to watch double feature. Just because
Have you not watched 1984, have you?
I've watched clips, but I'm going to watch it next.
I do very much think double feature is a bit of a return to form. Particularly, I would say the first part.
Okay.
Macaulay Culkin is
amazing.
Great. Yeah, really good. Also, it stars the kid who was in Firestarter. I watched Firestarter recently with Zac Efron, and yeah, I know you warned me not to watch that, but I did and was disappointed.
Even Zac Efron couldn't redeem it for me.
No, it was such a shit show.
So bad. I'm excited for 1984 purely because Cody Fern and Gus Kenworthy's in it as well, isn't he?
So good. Gus Kenworthy is, my God, yeah.
But yeah, I can't wait for season 2 purely because some of the talent that's behind it. As said, you put Dominique Jackson in absolutely anything, and I will watch it.
She will dominate, and
I would
will
love for her to really get into the horror franchise because she's got such a powerful presence. I think that something could be. I'd love to see her in a role as like a witch or something. And who knows? Maybe she will be playing a witch, but I feel like she would be.
I think she's going to have a witchy vibe in this. I mean, the thing that I will say, obviously, about the whole franchise as a whole, and even this that kind of offshoot, the fact that we are getting like trans actors cast in roles, we are getting queer actors cast in roles, and although the representation hasn't been like to our liking all of the time, I think in short spaces of time in episodes, a lot is relied on stereotypes. I'm hoping that there's a bit of a course correction with that, because if I'm being honest, the queerness of it all just really like annoyed me. Like, it just felt too much in places, like, and it was just it just felt like it was being done for the wrong reasons. Like,
well, it didn't feel queer in the way that queer is.
It was unrelatable.
Queer is by queers for me. Like, queer is when we make something, and that felt gay.
This was an idea of gay.
Yeah, that felt corporate pride. That felt.
Hi, gay! Happy Pride Month. We are sashaying away with deals.
Yeah, it was very, very that, unfortunately.
I love that theme.
Happy Pride Month. So I suppose if you're happy to, I'm happy to end on a positive note going into season 2 of American Horror Stories. I'm sure we might revisit this in a future episode again. You never know. See if you guys like.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Whether I can. If it's bad, I don't want to talk about it again. Yeah,
I don't know. I've kind of enjoyed this episode being maybe like one where we've not completely like loved it. Like, there's elements we've loved, but it's not something. That's not to say I don't recommend checking this out, guys. Like, please do make your own.
I'm glad I watched it. And as I said, the one thing it did was like, I'm going to go back and rewatch a series of American Horror Story.
Maybe that was the goal all along. Like, give them something that's less quality, so they're they're appreciative of the good stuff.
It also made me realise how much more I want from the makers of Blair Witch. But so let's go into our recommendations this month. Yes. I only have the one this month, and I think
I do as well.
Oh. So I'm keeping on theme with an anthology, and it's a book, an anthology book called Your Body Is Not Your Body, a new weird horror anthology to benefit trans youth in Texas. Now, it's over 30 creators from the transgender, non-conforming communities come together to voice their rage, defiance, and fearlessness in a new weird horror tradition. So it's a anthology of like fucked up, like short horror stories.
Fantastic.
A big portion of the proceeds goes towards a trans charity in Texas as well, where trans people are under attack.
Yeah.
And just gay people, and everyone's under attack over in America. But it's published by Tenebrous Press. It's available. I've got it on Kindle because I can't own too many physical books anymore. It's so good. All the stories are so f***ed up. But one of the great ones is there's one about a load of trans teens who like f*** up a load of like jock type people. Mm-hmm. Like really, and I mean, when I say body horror, I'm like it's
body horror.
It's visceral. There's some really decent stories in there as well by some incredible writers. I highly recommend checking it out. And the cover alone is amazing. So the cover is like a swan that's got like being wrapped by like loads of tentacles with eyes on it, and it's just gnarly. Gnarly.
Who are you? Who even are you?
Ew. But it's called Your Body Is Not Your Body. Please check it out. It's only like £6.35 as well on Kindle. So
go support it, guys.
Cheap as chips. Get it.
Cheap as chips. You're one with the catchphrases this evening. I love to hear it.
Bargain hunt.
I might change it up slightly and actually go for two recommendations. One that I know I can trust, but I'll start with one that I'm currently enjoying at the moment. We spoke about this before we came on to record, but I'm actually watching the Resident Evil show on Netflix, and I will say I'm not totally hating it. Like, I think, however hokey and cheesy the films are, like, they have a special place in my heart. I grew up with them. I didn't really like the Resident Evil Return or Welcome to Raccoon City, like the standalone film. I think that was a bit
I still haven't watched
cheap.
that.
It's a shame because I mean I'm not like an avid fan of the games. Like I've played them growing up, so I can recognize character names and like locations and all of that sort of stuff.
And how much I want Chris Redfield to fucking blow my back out as well.
Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick ass boy. Damn.
But I don't know. I was excited to see like Netflix taking it on because I thought Netflix, it's going to be good. I will say this is definitely, I think why I'm enjoying it so much. I'm only 4 episodes in and there's 8 episodes of the series. I'm enjoying like the monsters of it. Like it's a very visual effects heavy show. I think the creature design is mint. I think it's absolutely incredible. And I think the visual effects, and I think everyone involved is actually really, really good. I don't think there's a weak link. I've not like seen an actor that I'm like, oh god, no, they shouldn't be here. Yeah. I'm enjoying it so far. I've seen a weird scene on TikTok involving a Dua Lipa song, which I think is going to be a few episodes ahead.
Beautiful 180, crazy.
I usually do this with my recommendations. I recommend something before I finish it, and then I don't know, I get to the finale and I'm like, God damn, don't watch it, guys.
Did you say you've got 2?
Yes.
Because I realise I've got 2.
Okay, well, I'm happy to dip back to you if you want to take the floor once more. But Resident Evil so far, I'm enjoying.
We're at the same place as well. We're both 4 episodes in.
We're so in sync.
There's some great performances. The guy who plays Albert Wesker is.
I love him in everything. Like I loved him in Fringe. I thought he was great in Fringe, and
he's in Supergirl as well.
Oh, okay. I've not seen that, so
I'm sure it's the same person. I'm sure he plays the Martian Manhunter in Supergirl. He's got
an incredible voice.
The voice. Yeah. Oh, butter. But so my second recommendation comes in the form of some music because it's like unbearably hot in the UK at the moment, and it's not our Spotify playlist, which you can listen to after the show.
This month is another great one.
I've created a hyperpop playlist this month to go along with American Horror Stories because this season's like really queer, so I wanted to be like an actual gay celebration. But yes, so as I said, summer's here. We all need something to listen to this month, and it's really hot. The only thing that's been getting me through is an album from 2011 called Here I Am by Kelly Rowland. It features songs such as Motivation with Lil Wayne. It features Commander with David Guetta, Down for Whatever, When Love Takes Over, it's and Turn It Up, and All of the Night, which is it's an incredible album.
They're all on one album as well.
Yes,
all of those songs.
If you want to like shake your purse to one of the biggest icons in the world, it's actually like part of me wishes this was a joke, but it's actually a really fucking incredible album. Like I'm, as much as yes, I do mention Kelly Rowland in every episode. It's genuine love for her. I actually really love Kelly Rowland.
Can you imagine if she was on an episode though of American Horror Stories? Like, it'd hands down be the best episode just because of that.
Yeah. And she'd have to like...
There'd have to be another character called Freddy in there.
She'd definitely have to call like Dennis O'Hara or something like... That would be amazing.
Yep.
And my other recommendation is the 2011? Yeah. Oh my God, I feel so old. The 2011 album, Here I Am, specifically the international version by Miss Calandria Rowland.
Calandria. That's tickled me far too much. I suppose my final recommendation then would be another anthology series, which I know for a fact you can put your trust in, and is a good horror series, and that would be the Creepshow series on Shudder.
Yes.
I believe there's 4 seasons that have premiered so far. I believe we're still getting more, but where we've kind of said that the quality control maybe isn't there for American Horror Story, makeup effects legend Greg Nicotero oversees this show, directs a few of the episodes, obviously makes sure the practical and visual effects, everything, are just top par. We've got some incredible cameos in there. Adrienne Barbeau again is in there. We've got Tobin Bell, David Arquette's in an episode, Ali Larter. I mean, the list goes on.
Icon.
They get so many good people in there, and although it is hammy and cheesy as like that's the point of the show,
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely lent into, if you haven't seen the original film, which is an anthology by George A. Romero, written by Stephen King, I definitely recommend checking that out. But check out the series. Like, Shudder are doing incredible things with that, and that I think that's kind of like the jewel in their crown in terms of their original content.
Shudder's got some great original content, and they should definitely sponsor us. But speaking of, I don't think we've mentioned on here, but there's an upcoming queer horror documentary.
There is.
And it's by Brian Fuller, of all people, as well. And I fucking love Brian Fuller so much. Hannibal, Pushing Daisies, American Gods. He is...
Hannibal and American Gods are probably two of the most beautiful looking shows I've ever watched.
Every single show that he makes is gorgeous to watch. His use of colour in TV shows is amazing. If you watch Pushing Daisies and all its like pastel glory, and stick around purely if you don't enjoy anything else, just for Lee Pace being fit as and Christian Chenoweth being amazing. And she also does a cover of Hopelessly Devoted to You in that show, which is amazing. So yeah, check that out. I would very much like to discuss that when it comes out. I'd very much like them to do a follow-up and invite us on. I'd very much like them to give us a promo code or something like that for code Kelly
69. Kelly 69.
Kelly 69. Yeah.
That wraps it up for my recommendations. Yeah, absolutely. So
we've done it all.
Yeah, nailed it. This is my favourite part of the episode, so I'm very, very excited. You've warned me.
I'm just going to give everyone at home a heads up. If you've got a weak stomach, this one may not be for you. It's a hookup horror story of which it's let's just say it's a journey. They've asked to remain anonymous, but it's been sent in by J, the letter J. The name isn't J. I know what J stands for because I know this person. But right. Hoping my story holds up to some of the others, but I suppose we shall see. So, this one comes courtesy of Scruff, because I'm a bear and that's where I get my best lays. But this experience made me give it a wide berth for a little bit. I was on holiday in sunny Skegness and fancied a bit of fun while I was there, so I loaded up the app one night after sampling some of the worst fish and chips that I've ever had in my life. I get messaging a lad whose name was something like Subbottom97, and we arranged for him to come over to my hotel room. There's the usual back and forth flirting and exchanging of nudes, etc., so I start making the room look presentable. I meet Subbottom97 in the reception and take them up to my room, and the minute the door is closed, we start getting hot and heavy. He's probably the hungriest little bottom I've ever encountered, so I'm quite excited. I throw him over the bed and slip myself in him, and we start going at it. After a few moments, I start to get quite a bad stomachache, but carry on regardless because I don't want to ruin the moment. I start getting cold sweats, and without any warning whatsoever, I vomit all over poor Subbottom97's back.
Oh no.
I mean, it went everywhere. It's like if Jackson Pollock liked to play with his food. I immediately pull out and apologise. The poor lad looks devastated and starts kicking off. And then he starts retching and throws up himself all over the carpet. And then that sets me off again. There we are, both of us, stark bollock naked, covered in sick and standing in each other's dinner. We both run to the bathroom when the worst of it is over and jump into the shower together. Once we're both clean, he turns around to kiss me. I think, well, it's not a complete wasted night then. But the moment he kisses me, I can taste his sick. So I throw up.
Oh, no.
Again. Anyway. He cleans up and gets out, gets dressed and leaves. I spend the rest of the night in the bathroom and I never heard from him again. Anyway, lads, I love what you do, and I'm waiting for the day that you cover The Lost Boys, because that's my favourite horror film ever. I know that you, Liam J, will have a lot to say about those damn vampire boys. Yes, you are correct. Much love and less dignity, Jay.
So firstly, I don't think there's a bodily fluid we've not covered on this podcast now, because we've had them all. I feel like we've had them all.
Wow.
I think we've done the whole spectrum of bodily fluids. Also, it just made me think of that scene in Scary Movie 2 when they're just throwing up on each other. Yeah. Oh my god, I would be mortified. I know it's a natural thing. Like, no one surely does that on purpose. Like, I'm not into that. But I suppose some people are. But
yeah,
not to shame you, but no.
I know somebody who's into that. Yeah.
Oh dear me.
But yeah,
it was the guy that paid you 20 quid earlier. I want you to fart in my mouth, Ray.
I'll piss on your face. I'm farting your mouth. I shit on these walls, Ray. But yeah, thank you, Jay, for that lovely,
thank you, Jay.
lovely story. Thank you for your kind words as well. And one day we will cover the Lost Boys.
It's coming.
It's coming, and so will I.
Unlike you, I was going to say him, who was instead. Not
blue balls and throwing up on that. I wonder. He did mention bad fish and chips, so I'm wondering if they're.
Yeah,
the
I was thinking that.
Yeah,
that's why I have a Savaloy.
God, oi oi,
oi Savaloy.
But yeah, you poor thing. And if you're out there, sub button 97, and that was, you were the victim of that. Write in. I want to know more. Mm-hmm. But if you do have a hookup horror story of your own, you can either private message either of us, but please be me. But you can send it to Liam. But just. Yeah. Or you can
I've not
email
received
us
any yet. I've not received any from anyone yet.
I think it's because I read them out, and I think people like hearing your reaction.
My reaction.
And plus, I pester a lot of people I know. So you can also email them to theirqueerpodcast@outlook.com. So that's that. That's this month. It's not as hot as we last recorded today, so thank God.
Jeez Louise, it's getting there, isn't it?
It's still hot as So yeah, this drops on the 21st, the same day that that the first episode of American Horror Stories release.
I think it's Hulu in the States and Disney Plus here in the UK, isn't it? That you can watch it. So Disney Plus Star, yeah.
But yeah, you can let us know what you think. I'd be really interested in people letting us know if they're watching along, especially when the Dominique Jackson episode comes out. I want the whole of gay Twitter to be talking about it.
Cannot wait.
Can we just quickly talk about exciting gay news that Samara Weaving is joining the Scream franchise?
Yes. Yes.
I can't believe I went the whole episode without mentioning that. I can whatever my thoughts on 5 Cream were, 6 Cream or whatever the hell it's going to be called.
I just hope she isn't the opening. Because if I know she's involved, but then she's not
even
involved,
if she is the opening,
sad.
I know that she will, her performance is going to be the highlight. We've already seen images that of Gail returning in another power suit. This time it's
like a blue
cobalt blue.
Yeah I'm excited for this.
And she's got lime green shoes on as well, which is maybe a nod to her lime green suit in the first film.
I just love her.
Whatever happens, I'm excited for Scream to return, no matter in the capacity. As much as I may have shit on the 5th one a little bit, the fact that it's still out there and it's putting horror into
new people have discovered the franchise through it. So very much like American Horror Stories.
Yeah.
It's worked for some people.
So, speaking of iconic women, next month we are bringing you another special episode all about femme fatales. We are going to be discussing iconic, villainous, icon women, everything, shit on it, piss on it.
Never been done before.
People such as films such as Basic Instinct, Fatal Attraction, Gone Girl, etc. Single white female. Some incredible. There's a certain type of
It's like a subgenre in itself, isn't it?
It's amazing. I'm excited. Gone Girl is probably one of
yes,
the greatest films of all time. What you should do is next month you should listen to that. And in the meantime,
just imagine the Spotify playlist already. I'm excited.
Don't worry, I'm going to make it over the weekend. So. But what you can do is, if you miss us too much, and I know a month is such a hard time, you can listen. You can listen to past episodes. Go back and listen to them. They're a lot of fun. Listen of how our audio quality got magically better one
literally,
day.
I think from episode 6 onwards, it's okay.
Yeah, we discovered something new, which was great. And you can follow us both on social media. You can follow the podcast on social media. All the links are in the description. You can send me unsolicited dick pics. I would very much like to see them. If you haven't listened to our Stranger Things recap, surprise, I'm single now. So I'd very much like any and all of you to slide into my DMs and my and anyway, so
beep. Amazing.
Oh, and also I forgot to mention we've been featuring here, there, and everywhere.
Speaking of the hot weather as well, this month we've also featured on our good friends podcast, the Horror Hangout podcast, talking about a really camp 80s slasher called The Burning. So if you want to hear our thoughts on that, check that out. It's a great episode. You also get to see our faces as well if you watch the YouTube version. But if you just want to listen to our voices and see us mysteriously, then you didn't know it was visual, did you?
No.
I sent you a message. I basically sent you a message saying, girl, you need to...
Do you know how many times I had to mute to cough in that? Oh, God.
There was a lot. But anyway, we're out there. We're out there in the world. If you want to see how unfiltered and...
God.
Honestly, I look like a thumb. But I'm so red as well throughout the whole
fair,
episode.
I looked quite fit, so I'm not mad. So yeah, if you enjoyed that... if you want to see what we both look like properly, one thing I will say, you probably will never see us doing a video version of this. Maybe one day, but
maybe I don't feel the need. I think you just listening to our dulcet tones is enough.
But if you do want to see me, I have taken some fantastic nudes in the last week. So just again, slide into my DMs and you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
I need to know what you think of mine after this still. So on that note,
remember that closets were not made for people. They were made for monsters and babysitter killers. Bye.
You've been listening to a podcast on the Super Freak Media Podcast Network. To show your support, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And you can find us on social media in the links in the description of this episode. Thank you for listening.